Welcome to LinkedIn Live. I'm Christy Connor, your host. I am the author of The Confident Connector, How to Build Your Must-Have Professional Network in an Era of Job Insecurity. I'm here with Irené Turtle tonight, and I'm so pleased to hear from her. She's going to be talking to us about a very important subject that most of us deal with every day, which is creating powerful team connections. And she's going to help us answer some questions like, are you leveraging your team's talents? She has many illustrious titles. Amongst them, she is an ICF and EMCC accredited leadership coach. She works with executives, business owners, and teams to help them develop the people skills they need to go from good to great, and then great to outstanding. She helps senior leaders through that time when they get to that point in their careers where they might not be getting honest feedback. She helps to challenge their assumptions and discover some of their blind spots and how to get around them. With individuals, she focuses on strengths and developing emotional intelligence. And then with teams, she helps them to focus on their purpose to help them elevate their performance. Please welcome Irené with us this evening. Hi, Irené, how are you?
Hi, Christy, I'm great. So nice to be with you.
It's so lovely to have you here. Irené and I actually met through Friday Coffee Meetup, which is a meetup in our community, and she has helped a number of members, executives, and people in transition or needing coaching. So we are really grateful for all that you do, Irené, for our community.
Thank you, Christy. My pleasure.
So let's kick us off today, just starting to talk about teams. And the team dynamic has been a little different since COVID started. Many of us are virtual. How do you encourage people to create connections when everyone's virtual and might just be meeting via Zoom these days?
Well, virtual teams and teams that meet in person have a lot of things in common. I think the first thing to do is just embrace it, first of all, because we are here and it's not going to change anytime soon. And then we may be in a hybrid model anyway. So I think when you connect with people individually, first of all, so if someone's new to a team, throwing them in and not giving them some sort of onboarding process or connecting with them, or especially, I think, because of what we've been through in the last year, understanding what people are going through on a personal level. I had a client who was telling me about one of her employees who had a performance issue. And then as I questioned her, it turned out she hadn't spoken to the person, even though they'd had team meetings, she hadn't spoken to the person one-on-one in 2 months. To discover, she was going through a divorce, she had to move, and she had depression. Now, any one of those 3 things, as we know, is pretty, it's pretty difficult to deal with, but she had all 3. So connecting with people either in the meeting or in some cases outside of the meeting to know what's going on with them, because we've all had our challenges in the last year. So I think those are some of the main things, but the rules of engagement for teams, whether they're live and meet every Thursday in the conference room or they're online, we sort of need to have rules. We don't necessarily have to call them rules, but how we agree to be as a team. And that's what I do as a team coach, is I help people, first of all, find their purpose, because there are some teams, we call them teams, but they're not really teams. So what is it that you're there to do, whether you're meeting virtually or meeting in person? If you don't have a purpose, the team doesn't really know what it's there to do.
Are there any questions that you suggest maybe asking one another to try and check in with people when they're having those types of conversations?
You mean for the team leader?
for the team leader, or just even between the team members as they're getting to know one another, or just checking in during this time that's a bit challenging, do you have any questions that you like to ask people, or have people ask one another to kind of get that conversation going?
Well, I think it's, some people call them icebreakers. Some people it's, again, coming as a team to come up with those things. Well, I work with teams and they go, no, we don't like that. We don't like introducing the next person. We don't like, what color is your dog or whatever. So it's, coming up with things that the team wants to do to get to know each other. I had a team the other day that said, we don't know anything about each other outside of work. Some of us are new, so we've been here, only since during COVID. So encourage them to come up with ideas that would help them to get to know each other. And somebody I was working with did Jeopardy, just as a fun thing to connect with people. So it's whatever the team thinks would work to, forge those bonds, those connections, because they don't just happen on their own.
I agree. Do you feel like it's easier to connect with your team if you choose them? And if you didn't get to choose them, where do you start in trying to create that connection?
Yeah. Well, there's some people that are really, first of all, really good at picking talent and putting a team together. And then there are other people that maybe aren't so good at that. The first thing is, if you're not that good at it, have somebody help you. If you are good at it, I think that's phenomenal. I've had the opportunity on a few occasions in my career to pick my team, and it was wonderful. But I think whether you pick the team or you inherit one or you're thrown into one, it's making sure everybody's clear about the purpose. What are you there to do? Not just the goal, but the purpose. So are you there to build the best medical device to cure diabetes? Are you there to help the community if you're a nonprofit? So what is it that you're there to do? And does everybody know the purpose, and can everyone articulate it? And then what kind of culture do you create for the team? Not just as the leader, but the team members. And not every team is ready to come together to create that culture. But if the team isn't ready, the team leader can do that by, creating what we call psychological safety. And what that means very simply is creating an environment where everyone feels safe to say what's on their mind. So if you have a team leader or someone on the team that dismisses you when you bring up a certain topic that might make people uncomfortable, or it might be the elephant in the room, if you can't feel safe to say what you have on your mind, or you feel like someone's going to ridicule you or take some sort of retribution against you, those are the sorts of things that whether, regardless of how the team comes together, if you can even create those two aspects, I think your team will be a lot more successful.
I think that is so important. I've been in teams that have psychological safety and teams that don't, and it really makes a big impact. It also, I feel like, gives a way for innovation, right? Just allowing creativity to come out because people feel free. I noticed in the article that you put on LinkedIn, you talk a little bit about psychological safety as one of 3 themes. Can you kind of talk through your article a little bit and what you're seeing in this area currently?
Sure. Well, I use the analogy of a sports team, even though I'm not a huge sports fan, but I used to play field hockey back when I was a young girl in Ireland. And if you put a team on the field and you say, they'll all go after the ball, and you might win the game or you might not. But if you have a purpose, usually for sports teams, it's to win the game, right? If everybody knows what their role is, if everyone gets to participate, use their talents, and then can speak up in the post-match debrief and say what's on their mind. So the purpose of being there, now for some people it's lofty and it's philanthropic. For other people, it's again making the best widget or whatever on the planet, or creating a brand, or creating some sort of technology that's cutting edge. But not everybody. When I ask executives on your leadership team, does everybody know what you're there to accomplish? And very often the answer is no. Or they'll give you an answer, but it will not be the same. So again, it doesn't mean you won't succeed, but you will succeed so much better when you have a purpose that everyone, first of all, buys into, and that everyone can speak to. I mean, the second thing, like we talked about, is the psychological safety. I'm sure, like you said, you've been on teams where it has existed. I've heard leaders or participants even say, well, we're not going to talk about that. That's not on the agenda, and I don't think it's important. So you can almost see people get smaller, they disengage, they feel less empowered. Sometimes you feel like you can say things, but afterwards someone will take you aside and go, well, we're not going to, we don't do that here. So again, it's up to, for teams, often it's put on the team leader, but in more probably, I don't even want to use the word sophisticated, but more experienced teams, it's, as a team coach, you try and get everyone to come together to come up with those standards, those rules of engagement, whatever. And then the last thing I wrote about in the article was stakeholders. Again, sometimes teams are very, very focused on the task at hand, or the goals, the immediate goals, and they forget that they have stakeholders, and they could be the board, it could be their members if they're an association, or it could be their customers, or it could be any number of stakeholders. So what are their needs, and is the team aware of them, and are they meeting those needs? And if they're not, how would they know? So it's all of those things. So I think, again, there are lots of teams that I work with that are not bad teams, or doing an adequate job, but what are some of the things that they could do better? And sometimes they're not even aware of it. Like, I'm sure you've been in a team where everybody talks over each other.
Of course.
Yeah. And then there are the people that come late, don't say much, kind of grunt, and leave early because they've got an important meeting, even though this is on their calendar every week on Thursday at 3. And then there are people that talk too much, the people that hog the airways, or people that withhold information. So these are all things that will not necessarily derail a team, but they can certainly make you less functioning, less high functioning, and less successful.
Thanks for sharing some of those. And I think, those are around a little bit of personality and things to maybe watch for. Can you talk a little bit about what types of talents are good in building a team? What types of talents we should have on our teams, and why?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, I use the Gallup Clifton Strengths Assessment, which there are 34 talents in total as identified by Gallup. And when you take the assessment, it basically gives you your top 5. And the one thing about talents is there are no good talents, there are no bad talents. They're just your talents. And the key to success, as the guy who invented all of this, he started off with the hypothesis that there are these mysterious talents that if we can find them or cultivate them, that will make us successful. But he had to end up coming up with and throwing that hypothesis out and realizing that if we use our talents and we maximize those, first of all, we have to be aware of them, but then if we can maximize them and use them every day, that will make us successful. And that works not just for us as individuals or as individual contributors or as leaders, but especially as a team. So if you think about it, if you know your own talents and you know how to use those to be successful, but if you know the talents of the other people on your team, you will first of all realize that sometimes what they do and say, it's got nothing to do with you. They're not expressing an opinion or taking something up with you. They're using their talents. So I think on most teams, you need, on every team actually, you need a variety of talents. You need the thinking talents, you need the communicating talents, you need the getting it done talents, and you need the motivational talents. So there's some key combinations of those that I go into when I'm working with somebody in depth on that stuff. Some key combinations of those that are really, really invaluable to have on a team. And sometimes the talents can clash, and sometimes they can work really well together. But if you don't know what they are, and you don't know what to look for, and you don't know how your talents might clash or do well with someone else's, it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Again, it makes it so much smoother, I think, more productive when you know the talents of the people that you're working with.
I agree. It just helps you to find the right space and the way to speak with them as well. I do want to open it up. If you are on LinkedIn Live and would like to ask some questions, please feel free to put those in the comments and we will read them out to Irene as well. You talk a little bit about our talents. Can you talk about the team leader and the success that they can bring to the team, and what kind of talents a team leader might need?
Well, I think someone who can bring people together and someone who can encourage all the things that I talked about in terms of purpose and safety and, understanding the needs of all the stakeholders. So I think as teams are forming, the team leader is very important, but I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with them when you have a team leader and it's all about their agenda and their personality is so strong. Again, that will work, and it works in some, perhaps even in the military. I don't think that's how it works. The team leader is very important, but the members of the team and how they engage with each other. So there are books that will say, there are no bad teams, they're just bad leaders. And sometimes you find that the leader is the fly in the ointment and the leader needs to go. But I think, again, in teams that are more well-formed, the leader may set the tone, but it's the team members that really will ultimately make it successful.
Agreed. At what point do you think a team is ready for some type of coaching? Is there a signal or, a maturity level that they want to reach before they're ready to have somebody like you come in and help them?
Yeah, well, I mean, just so, because I have the strategic talents, I always think start with the end in mind. The end in mind for a team coach is that they will be able to coach themselves when you've moved on to another team. But you're right. Not every team is ready for that. First of all, if they resist it, if you go in and you do a diagnostic or discovery with a team and half of them say, no, we don't want you here, that's a pretty good sign. That's kind of obvious, but you know, sometimes there is so much dysfunction and things that need to happen first, maybe some team building or some training. I'm experiencing that now with a team. They're not quite ready for a coach to do some of the things we just talked about, but they do want to get better. They could probably benefit more with some training or some sort of facilitation first. But I don't think anyone's uncoachable if they want to be there. And it's just, you know, are they ready yet? What stage are they at?
You've worked with many teams, many executives. Can you tell us one of your turnaround stories?
I would never use the word turnaround when it comes to people, but I think...
Or bright spots. Bright spots,
yeah,
maybe. That's a better term.
What gets me, what really thrills me and why I love this work is when you can see somebody who's very smart and really cares about what they do, but they just don't have some skills. I was working with a scientist last year, really great guy, big heart, working in a field that really added to the world, if you know what I mean. But his listening skills were really bad. You could see, you know, when someone was talking, he'd be formulating the answer in his head. And also because he was so smart and so knowledgeable, he wanted to share that with everybody. But on the receiving end, it felt like lecturing and I'm the smartest person in the room, which, by the way, he was. As often people are who are very smart and have very high IQs and are technically brilliant. So what we really worked on together was helping him listen and just pull himself back, because it was so full on that it was overpowering, and actually nobody wanted to work with him was the bottom line. But so, you know, behavior, fortunately, is something we can learn and develop and change. And he did that. You know, is he, you know, would he get a gold star or 10 out of 10 for listening skills? Now, I don't know, but that's not how we measure it. But you know, it's great when he was able to see himself engaging in some of this behavior and pull himself back and either just be quiet or let other people talk or use some of his talents actually to teach and use more of the things that he had never employed before. So I think that was one of the people that I worked with recently that I worked with that was, I think, really meaningful, because again, he was such a great guy and he was doing unbelievably brilliant work for the community.
I love that. And thank you, because you're empowering people who empower our communities. You work so much in our community. It's lovely to see, you know, making that individual impact that's going to like empower more communities. So that's lovely. I have put your contact information into the chat window on the LinkedIn Live. And can you tell us a little bit about your practice, your coaching practice and your business? I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Well, I'm a boutique firm working with coaching, leadership development, facilitation, and now team coaching. And I think, you know, I've worked in my earlier career with tech and entertainment. So I think those types of people maybe are drawn to me because of that. I was also a recruiter for a long time. So I loved putting people in in the best jobs. So I do some career coaching as well, and also onboarding to help people be successful in their first year, because a lot of people leave within the first year of a new job. So I do that, and I end up, I think, working with the I call them the tech-ish people. They could be in software, but they might be engineers or in logistics, or again, maybe have been promoted because of their technical skills, and then they get to that stage where their technical skills, whatever those are not enough. So they need leadership acumen. They need to develop those really powerful people skills that will take them to the next level. So it's a lot of it is the same, working with teams, except it's a lot more complex. They're, as we know, more dynamic, ever-changing, complicated. But that's even, I think, more impactful and, can affect a lot more people.
I love that you touched on, if those in career, changing their careers. I know you've helped a number of my own friends. I've benefited from your very large network. And so I really appreciate that you really take somebody through the life cycle of their career, right? You have all these experiences that take them from, transitioning to onboarding to being great in your role, and then also that trajectory of their career path. How do they get up it? And so I love that you have all the pieces to it, and you can choose which one is best. That's an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about what is inspiring you right now, either in your role or just within the world at large, either way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, the reason I started to do this work was because I worked in corporate my whole life, and I was always fascinated by what made a good leader, what made a great leader. Why was someone a bully, and why was someone one of those people that, you would follow to the ends of the earth? You would follow them maybe to 3 or 4 jobs. I followed a few people to different jobs because they're great leaders. And I also saw, I hate to say, a ton of really bad leadership, and it used to really, I'm not sure what the right word is. I was always sad and feeling very disempowered, because that affects so many people. So helping someone develop their leadership skills, and let's face it, you can develop leadership skills. Yes, some people are born as leaders, but leadership skills, emotional intelligence, are things that we can learn and develop and grow. And when you think about these days, we're all working on teams, or most people that I work with in companies, global teams, virtual teams, multicultural teams. Again, a lot of us spend our lives on teams. So how can we make that more meaningful? How can we make it more impactful? And how can we be more successful? Because, I think when, like we said, when you're engaging in your talents, you're going to not only be more successful, whatever success means to you, but you're going to be more fulfilled. You're going to be happier. You're going to want to get up and go to work, or, whether that's in your pajamas next door or not, but also, your sense of well-being. And to me, those things are much more important than your title or how much money you make. Not that those aren't important, but all those other things have to be there too, to, I think, make us balanced and happy. So
I agree. It's so important. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, so for me, what excites me always is helping people grow, helping people develop skills that they don't have, because just like we said, we all have our talents. So you're a great communicator, you're great at connecting with people, and that comes naturally to you. For other people, they'd rather stick hot pins in their eyes than do what you're doing right now, or do the networking meetings that you do. So, but they have to do it in their job. So it's helping them, again, embrace it, be aware, and get better at it, whether that's you as an individual or you as a member of a team.
Agreed. We are about time. Did this bring up any other thing you'd love to share with the audience? Any other tidbits before we wrap up?
I think on the topic of talents, one of the things that, that I always love talking about is, you can call it being true to yourself, but understand your talents and understand how they may be holding you back, understand how to help them or have them help propel you forward. So, Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, everybody else is taken. It's kind of a version of that. Talent envy, a lot of us have that. We all grew up being told what we should do and focusing on the D versus the 3 A's that we came home with. So it's focusing on what our natural talents are and growing those into strengths. And as Mr. Gallup, Don Clifton himself said, those things will help us be successful, not trying to be like somebody else or we might be good at things, but they may drain us. So we want to focus on the things that we're naturally talented in and make those better and use those talents for good and to make us, again, more successful, whatever that means to you.
I love those quotes. And here's to being an individual and celebrating your strengths. Mm-hmm. With that, Irené, thank you so much for being here again with us. For you that are on the line, I have put her information into the chat window, so feel free to look her up and reach out. You have a number of comments in the chat window just saying how amazing you are. So thank you. Thank you to Irené. Thank you to everybody who's watching, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Goodbye.